but we have people loving themselves, knowing as interconnected as we all are, by loving myself, I help to make my world a more loving place to be. Change the problems of the world to bring about the kind of solutions that allows more people to have access to the resources they need and allows us to truly live in a world where all can benefit, instead of just very few people having a lot of things and a lot of people having very few things. So love is this energy that, as it continues to spread on this planet, it is the energy of love that will start to turn things around from the inside out. So sacred space is not a space we enter where we're trying to figure out who's right. In the name of sacred space, right means everyone has a right to be heard, everyone has a right to speak, and everyone has a right to take their turns. So for example, it's the natural state of the soul for the heart to be open to love, giving and receiving love, to be open to expressing gratitude, to telling someone a compliment, how beautiful they look. It's because when you say something out loud, repetitively, you're allowing your subconscious mind to know that it's safe, to know that it's familiar. So for example, so we sit here with our hands on our heart. I don't know if you can see that. Hands on our heart. We can close our eyes. And even if we don't know how to love, we can just say the most honest words. I want to learn how to love you more.
Learn how to love you more. Welcome to Sube la Vibra, Matt Kahn. Thank you very much for being here with us in Sube la Vibra.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
No, it is my pleasure to have you here with all of us. Matt, you have an amazing message, and it is amazing that you would like to bring your message to us. Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, so when I was a young child, I often had the very confusing experience of misunderstanding other people's feelings as if it was their opinions of me. So I would be around my friends who are having family conflicts, and I could feel their anger and agitation, but I would think that they were mad at me. So I spent most of my life confusing other people's feelings as if those were people who were mad at me. And so I spent most of my life, like a lot of us do, trying to keep people liking me and apologizing for things I never did. And over the course of many years, I realized that I'm what's called an empath. And most of us who are on a spiritual journey, such as your audience here, are empaths. And what that means is that we're not just aware of our feelings, but we're actually feeling the emotions of other people around us. And it's actually a very powerful and advanced psychic ability once we train and learn to decipher the difference between our feelings and other people's feelings. So I grew up very in tune with other people's emotions. And so it was natural on a spiritual path for me to take such a heightened sense of empathy and, of course, learn to offer the world spiritual teachings that are always the most loving way to heal our bodies, to awaken our soul's potential. So no matter what the goal is, my role is to bring the most loving possible teachings to anyone's healing journey.
Well, your message is particular, it's different, it's totally different. Yeah. I first bought a course of Sun Truth about whatever I love that. I would love that if you can tell us about this book,
yeah.
Whatever arise, love that.
Absolutely. Well, so as an empath, I developed my abilities and realized that I have the ability to work as a healer. And so I was working in the very beginning in a very traditional sense as an energy healer, where people would come to me and they would feel emotional heaviness or upheaval. And my job as the healer was to make it go away. And so I would clear it out, and then people would come back and it would come back. And so over the years as a healer, I began to wonder, why does it keep coming back? And what I realized when I was communicating with the universe is that it comes back because we're not treating it with the love and respect that we would treat a child. And I was challenged by the universe to offer teachings that allow each of us to communicate with our hearts, our bodies, our egos, our minds, as if it's a child in pain. So there's so many spiritual paths and approaches out there, but if the way we're learning to engage with ourselves is not the way we would hold a newborn baby, we're truly not showing ourselves the kind of love that we deserve and desire. So when I wrote that book, Whatever Rises, Love That, it was really challenging the entire spiritual community worldwide that said, if we're really going to heal, if we're really going to awaken, if we're really going to embody our highest mastery, we're going to have to love ourselves the way no one else has or can love us. And I started what's called the Love Revolution, which all around the world, you have people from all different walks of life reading this book and implementing the practices. And we have people that are loving themselves, not just as a way to break free from human suffering and to experience emotional freedom, but we have people loving themselves, knowing as interconnected as we all are, by loving myself, I help to make my world a more loving place to be.
One of the most important for me was love as a child, as we are a child, no?
The inner child.
Inner child, that's it.
Yes, of course, yes. When we grow up, we remember being children, but now we're adults. So the memory of our childhood lives inside the cells of our bodies. And oftentimes when we are triggered by people, when things aren't fair, when we shut down, it's because the memory of who we were as children, called the inner child, lives inside of our body. And so the more we actually become the most loving parent that we've ever had, as if we can't go back into the past and recreate history, but we can say all the love I didn't get and all the more love I wanted, I can love the memory of my childhood that lives in my heart. And as I begin to love my heart now more than I ever have in my life, what begins to happen is you start to have different perceptions of your memories. That truly your memories will start to change, and maybe it will go from insufferable to a different perspective. And the more we love ourselves now, the more it reshapes the way we remember our past. And the more we remember our past from a more compassionate, tolerant, peaceful, loving perspective, the more healed we become to open up space and not just have the greatest relationships with our friends and family, to call in the kind of intimate relationships we've always desired, to begin to step into our life purpose, to manifest the kind of resources and abundance that allows all of us to live a life of prosperity, abundance, freedom, and joy. And of course, to contribute towards waking that up inside everyone.
Why is so important love?
Well, you know, whether we're talking about personal love between partners, love that a parent has for a child, or we're talking about love for a soul connected to its creator. No matter what kind of love we're talking about, love is it's like an electricity. And it's an electricity of connection that no matter how different we appear to be on the outside, love is that bond of connection that lets us know that on the deepest levels, we're all connected and we're all equally a part of something bigger than us individually. So really, it's love as an energy that contains the intelligence, the inspiration, the renewed perspective that as love awakens in every human being, that human being's highest potential immediately drops in. And as love starts to awaken more on this planet will then become a space to which the greatest ideas and strategies and inspirations to change the problems of the world, to bring about the kind of solutions that allows more people to have access to the resources they need and allows us to truly live in a world where all can benefit, instead of just very few people having a lot of things and a lot of people having very few things. So love is this energy that as it continues to spread on this planet, it is the energy of love that will start to turn things around from the inside out.
Can you talk about surrender?
Yeah, surrender is an interesting topic because a lot of people will hear surrender and they think that it means to give up. Mm-hmm. So if someone is in a not so good relationship, they might hear the word surrender and thinks that it means give up and just stay where you're at. Mm-hmm. But surrender is never a passive energy. Surrender is a very dynamic force of transformation. So when we say surrender, what we are saying is surrender your resistance and your fight against the change that life is bringing to life in you. So for example, change is often making the kind of inspired choices that the ego perceives as inconvenient, frustrating, or I want to make this change, but I want to wait for the circumstances to be more favorable. Mm-hmm. Surrender is when we say, I surrender my need for immediate comfort because the bigger perspective is my safety, my well-being, and being surrounded by people that treat me with respect. So just as an example, mm-hmm. if you're in a relationship that your partner is not as respectful to your needs as you've been to them, and there's no way to communicate with them, surrender doesn't say stay where you're at. Surrender says make the bold choice to put yourself where you're better respected. Even if temporarily you have to sleep on your friend's couch, even if you don't know how your life's gonna recreate itself. When we surrender, we're acting from our highest level of ethics and going back to the inner child. We are then being the parents that are acting as the guardians to the children that live in our heart. Mm-hmm. So just as you would if you were a single parent in a relationship and you said, I can't let my child be exposed to this kind of energy. Mm-hmm. You would say, I can't let my inner child be exposed to this kind of energy. So my surrender is making the kind of courageous choices that I as a parent need to make for my child. Sometimes it's not a physical child, sometimes it's the child in our heart. So sometimes surrender can look like leaving a relationship that's past its due date. Sometimes surrender can be staying exactly where you're at and saying, oops, that's my phone. Sometimes surrender can be, I have all these ambitions, but I know I'm just going to stay exactly where I'm at, and I'm going to let go, and I'm going to allow the universe to show me the way. Really, surrender is when we call upon a higher force. Some people will call it God, the universe, the light, truth. I may refer to it as love. And we call upon this higher force and we say, please show me what I need to know. Please show me where I need to be for my highest evolution. So when we surrender, we are surrendering the agendas of our personal desires. We are opening up and saying, what's more important than what I want is what I need. So when we surrender, it's all about taking care of our needs and not putting that on a back burner for the things we want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing. The importance of the communication.
Okay, so communication starts with listening. If we're not being good listeners, how can we expect for someone else to be good at listening to us? So one of the interesting things about communication is when you are really listening to someone with interest. Now, oftentimes with a human ego, the ego is that part of us that says, I'm only going to listen with interest if I'm interested in the subject we talk about. Or if this person has an opinion that I disagree with, I'm not going to listen as a way of disagreeing. But when we are listening with love, let's say, we are going to say, it doesn't matter if I agree with them or not. That's neither here nor there. My job is to help this person heal their past. And just when I'm around them, I'm going to listen to them as to say, I may not agree with you, but I'm listening to you because you are important. You are important. The more important every human being feels, the more open we become, the safer we feel, the more we start hearing our intuition and inspiration. So when you're an awakened being, you're not just listening to the people you agree with. You're not just listening because you like what people say. You're listening as an act of love to help someone else feel safe, because the safer and more heard someone else feels in your presence, the greater likelihood that you're going to call forward the version of them that's equally going to be there for you. Mm-hmm. So we listen as an act of love. And what I find to be very interesting is that most people, when they react in conversations or they say things that they don't actually mean, what caused that outburst was not anything more than they didn't start the conversation listening on the deepest level. And for those that I've taught how to listen from a space of love, they find themselves reacting far less, because we're far less reactive when we're actually open to listening to someone, knowing that the ability to listen to someone is giving them a gift that someone from their past didn't give them. So we're actually helping people heal just by listening to the words they say, regardless whether we agree or not. And so this is where we start to really open up communication as an opportunity to facilitate healing for other people. And because we're interconnected, my ability to listen deeply to someone else also makes me feel like I'm being heard, even if the other person doesn't choose to hear me.
Can you explain why sacred space?
Well, because I think that, you know, we've been taught that peace is what happens when we find something to agree on. But the truth is, peace is what we create when both people are allowed to be heard. So sacred space is not a space we enter where we're trying to figure out who's right. In the name of sacred space, right means everyone has a right to be heard, everyone has a right to speak, and everyone has a right to take their turns. And at the end of the day, a conversation had in sacred space means both people got to share, both people got to be right in their own versions of right, both people got to be heard and understood. And when two people can exit a conversation having a very clear understanding of how this person feels and that person feels, without needing to decide who's more right than the other person, if we both got the chance to be heard, then we were communicating in a sacred space. And if one person dominated the other, or one person couldn't hear the experience of the other, it wasn't a sacred space. So a sacred space is a moment of communication where both people have a right to share without a need for any kind of judgment or any kind of punishment as a result.
And how can we do that?
Yeah.
Because you tell me, actually, yes, that's nice.
Sounds nice, right? Well, we sharpen our listening skills by listening. And even when you're not having a conversation with someone, you know, we can listen to the sounds of the moment. So, for example, where I'm at in my apartment in Seattle, in the distance, I can hear air conditioning. I can hear you. And so what I've learned to do over the years, and the universe has instructed me how to do this, is I've just learned to listen. So I think that what's interesting is that when we're not with other people, we have the opportunity to strengthen listening skills so that when you're around people, listening can be a more harmonious experience. Now, what's amazing about this is that the better you are as a listener, the more things people will share with you that you're interested to listen at or listen to. The less good of a listener you are, or the more impatient of a listener you are, the greater likelihood that someone's going to say something that you disagree or don't want to hear. And so it's a very interesting thing that we actually call to us the versions of each person based on how good those skills happen to be. So if I practice being a better listener when no one's around, I'm listening to my thoughts, I'm listening to my feelings, I'm listening to the sounds around me. And when I can be at peace with whatever is around me, then that creates the likelihood that I'm going to be in peace when another person's around me. And then I can be the space of healing for them. And the healing I give them is equally fulfilling me, and not waiting for them to give me something that they may not have the ability or the space to provide. So this is where communication, and this is where our spiritual journey helps us become empowered communicators, good listeners, and allows us to feel whole, happy, perfect, and free, no matter how complicated another person happens to be at the time.
And also you talk about what is our thought.
Absolutely. Well, you know, a lot of people look at their thoughts as if they are the creators of them. And I like to look at thoughts instead, especially in the book. What I really outline is looking at your thoughts like a tool. Because in the book, the second book, Everything is Here to Help You, it's really about how is everything a gift, a helper, an ally instead of an enemy. Because there are many people in the world that perceive enemies, adversaries, conflict, unfairness. And so if I can help you understand how everything in your life is here to help you, you'll be in more peace, you'll have more allies and less enemies, and then you will help create the tipping point to help awaken love on this planet. So with thoughts, I describe in the book how thoughts are like an alarm clock. And that the more noisy your mind is, the more unsafe your body feels. So for example, it's the natural state of the soul for the heart to be open to love, giving and receiving love, to be open to expressing gratitude, to telling someone a compliment, how beautiful they look. Mm-hmm. And in our society, we've gotten so fast-paced and so go, go, go that we forget to lead with an open heart. Mm-hmm. So as we become conscious, it's very helpful to let us know when our heart is closing, because when our hearts close, that means our stress levels are going to go up. And when our stress level goes up, it increases the likelihood of conflict with ourselves, with the world, or anyone else. So when we start to see when my mind is the noisiest, it's because my heart is shutting down. And that's the reminder that when our heart shuts down, we can open it back up by loving ourselves, being the parent that loves the inner child that says, I love you, you're safe with me, I'm so thankful you're with me, you're gorgeous, you're beautiful. And we put love into ourselves. But a lot of people say, well, how do I know when to love myself? But this mind, the noise is the alarm clock. And so it's kind of like, how do I know when to pay attention to my child? The mind will tell you. So you're going about your day, and all of a sudden you start having stressful thoughts, worrisome thoughts, concerns. I got to do this. What about this? How could they have done that to me? And in the middle of it, you stop and you wake up. And instead of taking those thoughts seriously, you say to yourself, these thoughts are only telling me that my heart is feeling unsafe. I'm only imagining all the things that keep me shut down. And instead of being lost in here, I'm going to love my heart. And as my heart starts to open back up again, I will notice that my mind goes silent again. And we realize through this book that the mind is not an enemy. It is not against you. It is simply an alarm clock that when the mind is the loudest, the heart is in need of more of our love. And we just learn to be such conscious, loving caretakers of ourselves. And we learn to interpret these messages and tools to live as consciously as possible so we can live without stress, without worry, without fears, and to live totally aligned in the universe and to fulfill our life's goal, which is to embody love and to awaken our
community. And how to control the fear that is inside us.
Right, well, it's a great question. I don't know that we control the fear as much as we work with it. But when we are afraid, that means that the adult you is about to go into an experience. So whatever we're afraid of is an experience where your inner child is saying, I am feeling threatened by this moment that you're about to go in. Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't always mean you shouldn't do the thing. When it's like a child saying to a parent, you're going to have to love me a lot more for me to get through this moment with you. Mm-hmm. So fear lets us know, and fear is also a great reminder that anything we're afraid of is a moment where we're probably going to grow on a spiritual level. And when we grow on a spiritual level, it's usually a circumstance where the ego doesn't get its way. So if you also have a fearful thought about, oh my God, I'm going to go visit my family and I'm kind of afraid, that means I'm probably going to grow spiritually, It may not be comfortable. It's probably what I need, but my inner child is telling me, look, I'll go through that with you, but you're going to have to love me a lot more because there's going to be some growth and it might trigger me a little bit. So I think when we really look at fear, fear reminds us how much more love we need to get through a moment. Fear all lets us know this is probably going to be uncomfortable. This is probably going to help me grow. This is probably what I need, but this is probably not what my ego wants. So it's almost like a warning, a foreshadowing of, by the way, the thing you're afraid of might not go as planned, but it's going to help you grow and evolve spiritually. And if you love yourself through it, it's going to be transformative instead of traumatizing.
I saw recently a video of you that you talk about the cookie dough and the cookie and the dough.
The cookie dough analogy is funny because I say these things and then I forget them. But I was talking about the oven being like life. And the heat being like the heat of adversity when things don't go our way. And that when things don't go our way, it's kind of like cookie dough inside in an oven. And the cookie dough says, boy, it's really hot inside this oven. I'd like to get outside this oven because I don't think I'm going to survive inside this oven. And the oven says to the cookie dough, of course you're not going to survive because cookie dough goes into the oven for the purpose of the heat of the oven turning it into a cookie. But a cookie dough doesn't know it's going to be a cookie. Cookie dough is just trying to stay like cookie dough. So in the same way, our egos are trying to fight against the heat of adversity because it's trying to stay an ego. But what life is doing is applying heat and stress and force to our lives to transform the cookie dough of ego into the sweetness of the soul. And so in all of our lives, what we learn is that all of the heat and pressure that we're under is actually for a very positive evolutionary benefit. But the more we love ourselves, the easier the journey becomes. And the more we start experiencing it as the cookie being birthed out of the cookie dough instead of as the cookie dough that's afraid of melting.
I love it. And when we talk about ego, in this book, everything is here to help you. Your perspective is really awesome because normally when we talk about ego that, something bad, and you said totally different.
Well, I think that, the ego is the part of us that thinks that things are good or bad, or just that believes that there's bad in the world. And, there are certain things that we all face and see that make it easy to think there is bad in the world. What I will say is the bad we see in the world are actions that come from people whose basic needs are not being met. And we have a large amount of the world without basic needs being met. So where there are places in the world where basic needs are not being met, where people don't have clothing, shelter, education, clean, fresh drinking water, where we don't have that, we have the likelihood for war and atrocity and victimhood and manipulation and abuse. So the more we start taking care of our own basic needs, the more we start taking care of our bodies, loving our hearts, being nice with our minds, the more we start taking care of our basic needs, the more we start to become conscious beings who don't attract conflict and don't create conflict. So the ego is the part of us that has likes and dislikes. But from the eyes of the universe, nothing is truly bad. Everything is simply a good opportunity to grow and evolve. The ego is the part of us that says, I will grow and evolve on my terms. And the universe says, you will grow and evolve under life's terms. So with the book, Everything is Here to Help You, it's about how do you learn how everything is a gift? How do you see everything as a blessing? Not just to walk around and saying it inauthentically. How do you really see everything as a gift? How do you actually see how every moment of your life is the universe preparing you and molding you into this incredible angel that all of us are here to become? All of us know we're meant to become better. How do we become better? How do we use every single moment towards our evolutionary benefit? How do we allow everything to help us instead of hurt us? And that's the outline of the book, of step by step, how every emotion and circumstance is literally helping all of us become more incredible than we could ever be under the choices of our own egos. So it's where we open up to saying, I'm willing to be greater than I've ever imagined. And I trust that everything life brings me is helping me become that greatness. When we say yes to that, no matter what happens in our lives, something really miraculous opens up. And all of a sudden, instead of life hurting, life is helping and conspiring to serve our greatest desires. But we have to take that leap across the threshold. And we don't know what's on the other side. But with love leading the way, we know that the only place to go is exactly where life is guiding us, which is to step into the unknown, only to see that life can only become more incredible than we've ever.
I am originally from Venezuela.
Oh.
The idea of my channel was to help the Spanish-speaking community, but also the Venezuelan people that are passing for a situation very particular. When I try to share your perspective and the perspective of other teachers, it's very challenging for them to understand. And when you are living in a situation where you are struggling and suffering, how to work under these circumstances?
For example, if I were going to teach in a country like Venezuela, what I would do in a perfect world, what I would do is I would first bring to the country resources that specific cities or villages need. So I would make sure that we're bringing food to people that don't have a lot of exposure to fresh fruits and vegetables. I would want to make sure that if, whatever diseases are plaguing the country, we can first alleviate and eliminate. We bring blankets and we bring clothing for people who don't have any. We make sure we build shelters for people. So basically, before someone like me would come to a country to say the words that I'm saying right now, I would first bring resources to a specific area to bring more of the basic human needs to a place of resolution. So that then once we have more of our basic needs met, then we can actually start having a conversation about higher consciousness. Because a conversation of higher consciousness can't actually happen until after people's basic needs are met. Because basically the mindset that you were sharing with me that most people have is we have so little and these people have so much, and we're just in this thought process of unfairness. So if I bring more fairness to a village and these people now have more than they've ever had before, now we have space. Now we have a moment of comfort, and now we can actually open our minds, because most people will say, I've gone without for so much. It's so unfair. And I'm not going to open up my mind to something bigger until someone pays me back. So we pay back the unfairness. We bring basic needs to human beings because everyone deserves equality of needs. And then all of a sudden, from that place of being served with generosity, their minds and hearts are more open to a higher consciousness. And what's even more amazing than that is that people whose basic needs are met will naturally start operating from a higher consciousness, because their needs being met will then awaken in them a consciousness that says, how can I be the fulfiller of other people's needs the way they were for me? So when we start fulfilling our basic needs, the kind of consciousness that we are talking about already starts waking up in people. I just give people very specific context for it. But it's hard to have conversations like this in places around the world where there are very, very, very basic needs not being fulfilled. So there are some people that think in a perfect world, you go into a country, you get on stage, you start talking about love, and all of a sudden people burst open. But what people actually need before that happens is they need clean drinking water, they need blankets, they need shelter, they need education. They need all the things people should already have. So for me, that's where we lead. We lead with a humanitarian effort of fulfilling basic needs. And as that begins to happen, we find people already acting from their most divine, godly nature.
Wow, that is amazing. Venezuela is in the number 7, the followers in the YouTube. It's a high number, you know.
Yeah.
But the message, of course, is nice, but the situation that they are living right now is
incredible.
Incredible, yeah, it is.
And I say that with respect, incredible in terms of eye-opening, humbling. You know, there are people in all sorts of countries right now pleading and begging for the kind of resources that, you know, a lot of politicians, when they go on their campaign trail, will say, and when I become this, here's what I'm going to give you. And they give their votes, and oftentimes it's much the same. And then people feel like their trust is being violated and broken. So it's kind of like when you get into a relationship and you have to kind of do the work to undo what someone's ex did to them to prove you're different. In the same way, you know, when I look at the world, you know, yeah, my messages will transform the world, but what's going to make the world ready for that kind of transformation is the kind of resources and care and attention that has gone overlooked for way too long. You know, so when I was talking earlier about creating sacred space for conversation, before I would even try to have a diplomatic conversation with a country about living more heart-centered, I'd have to create a sacred space. And the sacred space I would create is increasing the resources of basic human needs. And once we have more of those needs met, now we're in a sacred space. Now we can start having a dialogue of consciousness. But it's very clear to me what the issue is. It's very clear to me what the solution is. And the great thing is that we don't have to wait for politicians to make these kinds of changes, because we have the ability to band together as a global community. We have the ability to pool our resources and to help countries like Venezuela or Ecuador or any other country, India, Mexico, whatever you want to say, as we have the ability to solve this really interesting distribution issue. And as we all begin to have a little more, our minds and our hearts open up more. So I think that's the trajectory of awakening on this planet will be a humanitarian mission, not a political shift. So I'm happy to be a part of it.
For example, when you want to repeat something, you say, I don't know how many times.
Yeah.
Important. Can you tell us?
Well, you know, when I do visual guided meditations or prayers or affirmations, and oftentimes in my teachings, I have people repeat things out loud. It's because when you say something out loud, repetitively, you're allowing your subconscious mind to know that it's safe, to know that it's familiar. So, for example, if in my subconscious mind, I have a deep belief that says there's bad on this planet and only more bad will come, then I am programming myself to only look for evidence that confirms that. But if I have retrained my subconscious mind to be open to the fact that children are being set free, children have been set free, and even though I haven't seen it yet with my own eyes, I know only good will come of all of this. And as you train your mind to accept authentically, to accept that possibility, then your mind starts looking for evidence of that. And if everyone in the world at this moment was looking evidence of only good will come of this, we'd already be living in a planet of world peace. So all it requires is a certain number of us on this planet to start looking for the positive in things, and it will create a tipping point where the rest of the world will start seeing things from a positive place. So we're taking a collective unconscious and we're creating a collective conscious. And so if a certain number of us get together and start to say, yes, bad things are here, and yet only good things will come of it, and start looking for that every day, we're going to start tipping the scales, and all of a sudden Earth will feel like a heavenly realm, And all of a sudden, more people will have more resources and more opportunities instead of Earth feeling like an insufferable place to be. So it's not just for ourselves, it's for the world, it's for the future generations, it's for making peace with our ancestors who came before us. This is really the opportunity we have to co-create heaven on earth for the well-being of all.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and so it is. And when you do the affirmation, I read also that, well, and I know that also, it's important the feeling.
I would say it's the affirmation that awakens the feeling. I would say that, because if you're not feeling a positive feeling, it's because there's something inside of you that needs to be healed. So then we go back to loving ourselves. But when you do the affirmation enough, you're going to feel a very positive energy. And what's very confusing for a lot of people is that you will feel more positive on an energetic and emotional level before it looks like the world becomes a better place to be. So the conflict people have in their egos is they say, well, how can I feel so good when so many people have less? And then we shut down and we say, only until everyone has more will I allow myself to feel that good. But what we don't realize is that when you allow yourself to feel good, it doesn't mean you're laughing at someone. It doesn't mean you're not caring for someone. It means the feeling in your body is telling you that you are carrying a higher vibration of consciousness. What you're feeling is what's radiating out to the world, and what radiates out into the world, if you let it radiate out of you, will start to, over time, take shape and form as the better world you want to see. So we can't be fooled into thinking, oh, I feel good, but people are suffering, so I got to shut this down. We have to say, my feeling good is telling me the kind of energy I'm putting out in the world. And if I let myself feel good, I'm going to help transform the world, which is going to help things become the way I want it to be. So it's not feeling bad because of how good we feel. Feeling good is literally our participation in changing the planet into a more conscious-based society.
You start with the project resolution.
Yes.
Can you tell us what it's like?
Project Resolution is a free call I do every single month where I lead meditations and I pull together light workers and earth angels from all over the planet, where we're all doing a meditation together, focusing on global peace. Every call will have a different subject matter. The first call was on visualizing the children held at borders of the U.S. freed out of cages, visualizing men and women who are caught in human trafficking, freed and sent home to their families, and even healing and transforming the people that are running these human trafficking and bringing them into a reborn consciousness so that they themselves are not participating in such suffering and abuse. So every call I do is about using our energy to visualize and to affect positive change on the planet. Because there's so many of us that will sit around, wait for politicians to do things, and then they don't do things and we lose faith. And what's interesting is that the political world is different than the spirit world. Mm-hmm. So we can lose faith in politics, but we can't lose faith in the universe. So when I gather people together once a month, it's for all of us to come together to energetically be the change we want to see. And every month, whether it's focusing on cooling down the temperature of the earth, whether it's about freeing all the children, whether it's about spreading distribution of wealth around the world, whether it's visualizing countries in conflict and bringing peace to both of those lands. Mm-hmm. It's an opportunity for human beings to each month be a part of a free call where we give our energies for the greater good of the world, and knowing and noticing that when I give my energy to the greater good of the world, how much better of a world I will perceive. So it's for the world and it's for us at the same time.
Yes, I participate after the call. I have the chance to do it.
Yeah.
Wow, the energy that I felt was amazing.
It's powerful.
Gosh, I am feeling everything. The channel name means raising your vibe in English. This is, in your books, you talk about the fears and how the impact of our light has in the life of others.
The light we carry within ourselves not just has the potential to transform our circumstances from hurting to hopeful, to heavenly, to whatever degree we go. But the higher our vibration goes, the more we actually bring out of other people their highest qualities, their greatest talents, and their most miraculous attributes. The more we walk into a room just by holding this higher consciousness, the more we help energetically bring resolution to conflict and bring about more peace, even if we're just standing in a room with other people. So when we carry a higher vibration, not only is it the key that unlocks the door to our greatest capacity and our highest potential, but holding a higher vibration is what helps increase the likelihood that other people will experience more blessings and benevolence instead of more stress, outrage, and atrocity. So really, it is our life purpose to learn to awaken to a higher vibration, to train our bodies to be able to hold a higher vibration. And this is what it truly means to be love in physical form, to be the energy of the universe, fully embodied as a divine human being. And this is what all of my work helps each reader and participant at my events experience in real time.
Mm-hmm. You also say that we are one, no?
We are all one light, one consciousness. We're not all the same person. We're not all the same personality. Each person is like a finger, but there's only one hand of God. So we're all different fingers on one hand of God. We're all different waves in the ocean of existence. We are all one reality, and we're all acting it out and playing it out as different expressions and combinations of attributes. So yes, not as our personalities, not as our uniqueness, but as our soul. We are all one light, and yet the soul is a unique individual expression of the light. Like we're all a rainbow, but each of our souls is a different color. And so when we come together to remember that oneness, that unity, that which connects us, not that which divides us, then only more peace, beauty, and love and goodness shall come to this planet. It's a very timeless remembrance, but it literally takes an entire lifetime to fully embody it. And so that's why we're here. We're not here to rush this. We're not here to try to hurry up and fix it or complete it. We're here to enter into the truest and deepest and highest purpose of why we incarnate and why we exist.
Mm-hmm. And there is something that you say about respect each other belief and as respect each other as it is, no?
Well, yeah, every one of us is going to see life a little differently, and each of us have the right to exist, whether our hearts are filled with love, whether our hearts are filled with hurt, whether our hearts are filled with hatred. Because every single one of us is going to play an important role in whoever we interact with. So even if you have someone in your life who seems so unlike you, or you're all about love and they're all about gossip, there's a reason why that person exists in your life. And primarily, a person exists in your life and you ask yourself, what is the thing that I wish could change about this person? And whatever that thing you wish you could change about that person becomes the thing you work on in yourself. Now, just because they have this lack or imbalance doesn't mean you do. But what is interesting is a soul will look at someone and say, I wish they were more loving. I am already a loving person, but if they're not going to practice being more loving, I'm going to become even more loving to make up the difference that I see. And so I will thank this person. Thank you for helping me become more loving, because a soul is always looking to better itself and to go from being loving to more loving to more loving to more loving. Even a soul that would look at a person and say, thank you for being so hard for me to love. You've made my love more unconditional. Thank you for helping me become more patient in your presence. You know, this is really a way that we can allow our differences to actually be a training ground that helps to make us better. Because it's so easy to look at someone and go, oh, we're different, and and we turn away from them. And you don't have to have everyone live with you or be everyone's best friend, But every single person exists in our lives for a very, very, very mysterious reason. And when we understand that every person is here to help us learn, even if the thing you have to learn is to speak up for yourself, and you're in a relationship where the person doesn't seem to care about your feelings, and you have to use your words to say, I'm sorry, I can't be in this relationship anymore, that person exists to help strengthen that weakness, to help bring courage to your voice. So it's not always to keep people in your lives, it's just to know the very reason you were brought together with people is to help strengthen weaknesses and to become the most exquisite version of you you've ever been. And the best people to bring out our greatest qualities are often people not at their best. It's amazing.
Yeah. What I understand is a little they reflect of us, no?
Yeah.
Or no?
Well, so like, for example, if someone's mean to you, I wouldn't say that means that you're mean in yourself. I would think that that would be a misunderstanding. What I would say is their meanness reflects your opportunity to give more love. So if someone's mean to you, it doesn't mean that you're a mean person. It means their meanness is showing you where they're at in their journey, and your opportunity is to either love them from afar or to offer forgiveness so that their meanness helps make you more loving. It's more of opposites.
Wow, that's just amazing.
Do you have a small exercise, whatever you think could be valuable for our viewers?
So if we all, just as an exercise, what would happen in this moment if we just sat together and we made this moment not about what's wrong with the world, not about what's wrong with our lives, not about what's wrong with our communities, not about what's wrong with our past, but we just sat and made this moment about being with us. And then no matter how many people have wronged or hurt you, in this moment, you're going to do right by yourself. You're going to give yourself all the loving attention that you've ever wanted. That instead of holding a grudge or judging other people, we're going to give ourselves what no one else could provide in the past. So we sit here with our hands on our heart. I hope you can see that. Hands on our heart. We can close our eyes. And even if we don't know how to love, we can just say the most honest words. I want to learn how to love you more.
Learn how to love you more.
Right? We can't assume we already know, so we have to be honest about it. I want to learn how to love you more. And I'm going to add on another sentence to it. I want to learn how to love you more. Please show me how.
I want to learn how to love you more. Please show me how.
I want to learn how to love you more. Please show me how.
I want to learn how to love you more. Please show me how.
And through these words, what you're noticing is we're melting the distance between you, the adult parent, and the inner child. And you're asking the inner child to help you learn how to love it more. And what you'll feel is a melting of barriers in your heart, a relaxing of your mind, and you'll feel your nervous system start to come into a state of ease. And so we try this for a few minutes. I want to learn how to love you more. Please show me how.
Show me how. That's right. I want to learn how to love you more. Please show me how.
I want to learn how to love you more. Please show me how.
Yes, that's one. I want to learn how to love you more. Please show me how.
I want to learn how to love you more. Please show me how.
I want to learn how to love you more. Please show me how.
I want to learn how to love you more. Please show me how.
I want to learn how to love you more. Please show me how.
And see, even you smiling more, you can feel the joy, can't you?
Mm-hmm, yes.
Yeah, it's amazing. Just that, something that simple, done many times a day, has the power to transform your life if you do that for an entire week. And then once you do it for an entire week, there's so much positive energy around that you want to keep doing that. And literally, it's just learning to train ourselves to love ourselves instead of wait for other people to make us whole. That's why I call my movement the Love Revolution, where we are not fighting anything. The revolution is I'm going to love myself the way I'm no longer waiting for other people to love me. And it's a very transformative force when we go about that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us where can we find you, or where can we see you?
Well, I always do many weekend events across the United States. I'm starting to now go international in London, and next year I might also do Australia. I might be doing Scotland, and in the future I would love to come to many Spanish-speaking countries. But for the benefit of people that can't quite come to the U.S., a lot of my events are offered via live stream. So if you go to my website, mattkahn.org, that's MATTKAHN.org. In the upper right hand, you'll see a pink button that says live stream, and you can watch a lot of my live events. You can go to YouTube and put my name in and see hundreds of free videos. I post a free video every month. You can, at my website, mattkahn.org, you can sign up for the free newsletter. You can sign up to be a part of Project Resolution as well. And there's just always an endless array of opportunities and ways to bring the world together and to allow us all to really commune in the vibration of love that this planet is ready to, be transformed by. So this is a really exciting time.
Yes, it's exciting. Yes, thank you, Matt. And do you have a final message for us?
I do. Well, let me ask you a question. In Spanish, how do you say I love you?
Te amo.
Te amo. Oh, it's easy. So my final message to all of you, with our hands on our hearts, te amo.
Yo te amo también.
Te amo.
Te amo.
Te amo.
Te amo.
Te amo.
Te amo.
You know, I appreciate my message being translated into a Spanish-speaking language. And so, of course, I wanted to show honor to the Spanish-speaking culture by saying the I love you in Spanish. And every time I meet someone from a different country, they teach me how to say I love you in their language. And so I don't remember it, but I've said it in Japanese. I said it in a bunch of different languages. So to the world that is awakening, to the world that is ready to manifest heaven on earth, to all light workers, to earth angels of all countries, including all Spanish-speaking countries. Te amo.
Te amo. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Matt.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
This gift is amazing, your message, and thank you very much.
You're so welcome.